Hi, everybody. I'm Gloria Moraga. This is the Political Woman podcast. Thanks for being here. Please subscribe. Please share and follow. So, going to concentrate on healthcare in this podcast. Why? Because you know how the saying goes, if you have your health, you have everything. It's true. It's true. I'm someone who has had my share of health care issues. I do know that, boy, when you're healthy, anything is possible. So let's take a look at what Trump wants to do with healthcare in America. Why? Because it's important, my friends. All right, you remember, Kamala Harris wanted to increase health care coverage for all Americans. She supported 100% the Affordable Care Act, which, by the way, majority of Americans support, which also happens to be Obamacare. Now it's coming out that some people who voted for Trump didn't know that the Affordable Care Act is Obamacare. They wanted to do away with Obamacare, but keep the Affordable Care Act, which has provided coverage, healthcare coverage, for millions of Americans. When they were debating, it became a thing that Trump said, yes, in his first administration, he tried to outlaw Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. And he doesn't want to replace it. He's on record wanting to replace it. And what's he going to replace it with? Well, he's not sure. He has concepts of a plan. And the concepts of his plan are most likely in Project 2025, when they are in Project 2025. So I'll share some of that with you. But we now know who Trump wants to put in charge of health care in America. And if you are afraid, my advice to you is be afraid. Be very afraid. Let's just share some headlines to get started. This is from National Public Radio. Trump's win could accelerate the privatization of Medicare. OMG. This one is from NBC News headline, millions at risk of losing health insurance after Trump's victory. Subsidies to buy insurance from the Affordable Care Act marketplaces are set to expire at the end of 2025. If not extended, coverage could become unaffordable for many. You voted for him. And yes, his concepts of a plan were, let me check with Project 2025, because this is what they want to do. Of course, they're rich people. They are in bed with the insurance companies. This is my favorite. This is the one I wanted to start with. Time magazine. Get ready for a catastrophic 4 years for public health. Raise your hand if you voted for him. This is what you're gonna get. This is what you're getting. It was all right there in black and white. It's all right there on the website. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at the people that is going to give us a catastrophic 4 years for health care if they are approved. We'll start with this dude, because he is probably the most, I would say, well-known. I don't know, maybe the next guy is more well-known. This is, sadly, a member of the Kennedy family. I say sadly, sadly for them, because I'm sure, they've already been on record disavowing him. Robert Kennedy Jr. is a environmental lawyer. He has a long track record of spreading lies about vaccines and using his nonprofit, he calls it Children Health Defense, to promote, I'm just going to say it, falsehoods. I'm just going to say more lies. His take on vaccines is no vaccine is safe. Tell that to the millions of people who got the vaccine and didn't get polio. Or just name a disease that we have a vaccine for. Let's just talk about COVID. That vaccine saved lives. I know nincompoops disavowed it, but grow up. And I'll have more on COVID in a minute. Kennedy, he's a frightmare. He's not going to have the authority right away if he is confirmed as Secretary of Health and Human Services in this country. Now, that's an if. We don't know what Trump is going to do. We don't know how Trump is going to get some of these people into power. If he has to go through the Senate, it might be an issue. I don't have any faith in the Senate because it's going to be run by people who are bending the knee to Trump. And I don't have any faith in them. They're a bunch of, okay. I won't even go on because it's just ridiculous. I don't know if Kennedy's going to be confirmed, but Trump could do that recess thing and put him in power. Later, can they try to control him? They can, but we shall see. Now, I said Kennedy is the most well-known of the people Trump wants to put in charge of our health, but I may not have been totally 100% truthful because this dude is probably more well-known than Kennedy, I would think. This is Dr. Oz. Why do we have Dr. Oz now possibly being considered for the Trump administration? Because he lost his bid for the United States Senate to, thank God for you, John Fetterman. But he's a TV doctor. He does have training. He is a doctor and still has his license till the end of the year, at least, according to reports. Because you have to renew your license every so many years. So Dr. Mehmet Oz, TV dude, thanks to Oprah Winfrey, has been nominated or picked by Trump to run the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS. So we want to put this guy who is selling like snake oil, he's a snake oil salesman, to unsuspecting people, put him in charge of health care for millions of people in this country, for older people, but also for disabled. And other people are eligible for Medicare, Medicaid services. Oz's issue, he sold himself out to sell products that weren't necessarily good, and products that he received a lot of money for pushing. So once again, we have another person who puts the almighty dollar ahead of our country and ahead of the health care for Americans. Now, CMS, Medicare and Medicaid Services, is a $1.5 trillion health care giant. It sets Medicare payments for rates for hospitals, doctors, labs, and other services, other healthcare services. And now Trump wants to privatize, as I said earlier when I was talking about Kennedy. So some of this money would go over to private insurers. But guess who's going to get screwed in all of that? Us. The little guy. Moving on. Next, David Weldon. Now, he's a Republican. Yes, if you remember the name or the name sounds familiar, he is a Republican from Florida. Remember, he was one of the, the doctors, the physicians in the Congress. And he is a doctor, an Army veteran. He served in the House of Representatives from 1995 to 2009. He has promoted anti-vaccine views. In fact, that's a thread that runs through the careers of all of these people. They are anti-vax. So you're out there going, well, I don't know. I think my viewers are smart. Oh, yay. People who don't support vaccines. Sweethearts. It's science. It's science. You know, you can look at things and have opinions about them, but overwhelmingly, science saves lives. Many lives. So, so this dude would be in charge of the Centers for Disease Control. And when he was in Congress, he pushed some compound instead of vaccines. He introduced the Vaccine Safety Bill in 2007. And let's just say he's right with Kennedy along those lines of being an anti-vax dude. Now, this guy is up for the head of the Food and Drug Administration. And I have a quote from somebody, one of his friends, who say Marty is a man of science. His name is Dr. Martin Markey, and Trump wants him to be the Food and Drug Administration commissioner. He is also questions vaccines for children. He says, quote, I think there are questions that we can ask that have been too taboo to ask about hepatitis B vaccine for newborns and the third COVID booster shot for healthy children. And Dr. Marty is a man of science, is a friend of Kennedy's, so he'll be right there with Kennedy. Finally, a woman. Here's our woman. Of course, they're giving her, Trump gives a woman, some stuff to do every now and then. This is Dr. Jeanette Neskowat. She was the medical director for City MD, get this, a chain of urgent care centers. But she's a doctor. She is also a Fox News contributor, another thread that runs through Trump's appointees. But she has called vaccines a gift from God. But she opposed COVID vaccine mandates. So they're a gift from God, but let's don't use the gift because Trump says so. I don't know. But she is up for Surgeon General. And I'll just say Surgeon General usually doesn't do much. I mean, some do. We've had some Surgeon Generals who were very involved and very, very good. Trump made some announcements on these names on Friday. It's Sunday now. This is a quote from the Time magazine article. This is just the first sentence or so. Quote, Donald Trump may only be president for another 4 years, but the impacts of his administration on public health could be catastrophic for a long time to come. This is from Time magazine. While we don't know exactly what will happen, there's no doubt the next 4 years will see attempts to curtail the authority and autonomy of federal health agencies like the U.S. Food and Drug Administration The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, something that the president-elect tried to do during his first term and failed. And he has said that he's going to let RFK Jr. go wild and do what he wants on health. So that is an end quote from Time magazine. We know that the 60-year federal program, Medicare, is going to be in some trouble because it is in Project 2025. The conservative, this is a quote from another article, the Conservative Heritage Foundation calls for making insurer-run plans the default enrollment option for Medicare. So they are looking out for big business and the healthcare industry. They're not looking out for our health. And before I go, I just want to say that we still in this country are struggling with what happened when Trump mismanaged the pandemic. And I'll just quote, COVID-19 has affected every country in the world. But the United States is the country with the highest number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 and confirmed deaths. And that's on the Trump administration. That is on him because he knew about it and didn't do anything because it's just going to go away. It's just like one of these guys that Trump has nominated as a Fox News host. It's the dude for the Pentagon. He was bragging on Fox News that he never washes his hands because he's got immunity, herd immunity. So he doesn't have to wash his hands. These are the idiots Trump is putting in charge of our country. And he's doing it for money because they support him and they're rich. So we are the country that suffered the most under COVID-19 and developed the vaccine, but then all the nincompoops didn't want to have to get the vaccine. And now they're going to be all in charge. Just so you know, the number of COVID cases in the United States, this is as of May 2023, 106.7 million cases of COVID. Number of deaths as of 2023, 1,161,164. 1.1 million plus Americans died from COVID. They're dead. They're gone. You don't care about that? And you didn't know any of these people? They lied about it, okay? They lied about it. And now it's coming out that some of those rich people that were in the Trump administration the first time around sold their stock when they knew about how bad this was going to be. And they made millions off of selling certain stocks because they knew it was going to be bad. Did we know? No. No, we didn't know. And I posted something on social media and I said, they got rich, we died. So I want you all to gear up for next year. Be warned. Take care. Be safe. Because it's coming. It's coming. I don't know how many of these people are going to make it, but we have to think that some are going to make it, and they are going to take steps to change the healthcare system in America, not for the better. We had that choice, and not the majority of us, because we're now finding as numbers keep coming in, the votes are still being tallied. I mean, Trump won, but votes are still being tallied, that He doesn't have a majority of votes. It's under a majority. So that gives me some hope that we're not all dumb and that some of us just didn't vote because you're dumb. And some of you think that, oh, none of this stuff's going to affect you because, elections occur and nothing affects me. Get ready, because it affects you. I had planned to post a lot more when I was on my trip, and it just turned out that the play that my nephew wrote, Jared Duncan, was brilliant, of course. And you'll be hearing more about that in another podcast. But I will say that it was a trip from hell. It was a trip through hell. And just let me rant a little bit here at the end of the podcast, now that I've talked about healthcare. We got stuck in traffic. When you live in the valley in Northern California and you're traveling to Southern California, you have to pass through the mountains. And if you go one way, you have to go through the grapevine, which in California, the grapevine, if it's winter, there's snow. Just be ready to have snow drifts and your car not being able to get through the snow drifts. But this time it was a little bit different. Our other nephews, were in front of us in their car coming from the coast, from the Monterey area down to Southern California. And they were a little bit ahead of us, and they said, don't get on the grapevine. There's a 4-hour backup. 4-hour backup? And we left really early, and we were going to get to the play early and, have cocktails. Be very cosmopolitan. We took a side road. And, if you watch horror movies, which I do, I love horror movies, my favorite genre, don't take the side road. Don't ever go on the side road at night. Don't go on the side road that's windy and curvy and doesn't have any gas stations nearby. We went on that road. And it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. But we made it. We made it. It was a miracle. It was a miracle in the 21st century. But I want to tell you why there was a backup on the grapevine. Electric cars. Apparently, there was a blockage of some sort, but all the electric cars lost battery power and were stuck. So it made the backup even worse. And that is something else we can blame on that dude that's ruined Twitter that can't get a shirt that fits. His damn electric cars were stalling all over the roadway. And, Trump used to say that. Trump used to criticize the electric car. But now, since Elon Musk bought the election for him, he doesn't say it as much anymore. I'm Gloria Moraga, political woman. Please subscribe. Please follow me on TikTok and YouTube. I love you. Be safe.